Yes, that's okay. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Conservation Conversation. I'm your host, Eric Crown, and this is our first episode on YouTube. So, this is pretty exciting, and I'm excited everybody's here to join. Now, it should be working that as we're running live, what you're going to be able to do is to write your comments, and they will be coming on screen just like we had before. And everybody that's joining us for the first time, welcome to the Conservation Conversation. This is episode 14. We're going to be talking about snare trapping, poaching, and ways to approach the more difficult topics in conservation through kindness, and how that can battle all forms of evil. So anyway, welcome back. We are here on YouTube. This is our first episode on YouTube. And for people that are just joining us for the very first time, what we're going to do is when we have our guest on, we're going to have our comments live on the screen so you can interact and join us and talk to us. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining. Over here, we're going to give it a few minutes before we start, just to give everybody a little bit of time to come over here and find us. Here we are on YouTube, our very first show like this. So super exciting. Anyway, we are going to go ahead and start it up. We have so much to talk about today. So here we go. Thanks for joining. And you know what? It's our world. Let's talk about it. All right, here we go. And we are back. And this is our first time using the basic chat function here on YouTube. So please hop in, come check it out. Say hi, let me know you're here, and let me know you're watching, and let me know what's on your mind. Because today we are going to talk about a very difficult topic, and I want everybody to know before we begin that we are not going to exploit the horrors, I guess you would call it, of this type of snare trapping. This is a very unique form of trapping, but we're going to talk about our ways that it's being combated and creative ways that people can fight back through kindness. And so anyway, that brings us to the very beginning of the show. As always, we like to start with a quote. So this quote comes from Buddha, and this is really about our topic today. The quote is, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule." Okay, so that's something to keep in mind today, because what I have found in my travels is that a lot of times when it gets into poaching, what we're talking about tend to be people that are in very difficult economic situations. And I just want to set this context before we begin. The people that live in the middle of the Amazon, they have had their lives the way that they have had them for the last couple hundred years, and they don't have the same internet access. They don't have the same amount of local education. There's always NGOs out there trying to help them preserve their way of life, but also to alert them that they're in a lot of danger. But what we find is that there are economic drivers that put the people in these situations. So when we talk about poaching today, what I'd like to remember is that first of all, it starts with a market, a very expensive product, whether that is ivory, whether that is types of leather or skins from different animals, jaguars, leopards, things like that. So what we need to think about first and foremost, or even illegal pets, think about monkeys. What we're talking about here are the Western economic that drives the market for the poaching. Again, I'm not defending poachers, but what I am saying is that a lot of times the poachers are the easiest people to look at and blame, but the situation is bigger than the poachers. Unfortunately, the situation is often compounded by local contextual issues, and there's a lot to talk about. And you know what? A lot of people that poach either do it out of necessity, or sometimes they don't even know. It's just cultural. So again, what I want to do today is talk about it and reserve the anger that you'll naturally feel knowing that what they're doing to these animals. But let's dig deeper in, because in order for us to solve this poaching problem, we need to actually talk about this poaching problem. We can't do it. There's always these articles being sent around saying that you know, oh, this hunter was killed by, the lion that he was hunting. And they're very mean-spirited articles, and they're very mean-spirited things, and people celebrate this. And I think that I find this very disturbing because, me personally, I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy, I don't have a gun, I don't like guns, I don't hunt, obviously. Now, that's not to say that I judge other people that do. Other people can do it. That's fine. But that's my context of which I enter into it, and I have to remember that I have the luxury of having that context and that perspective, because I'm not living in an environment where I'm starving to death. A lot, again, we go back to this poaching. It's like illegal fishing that we saw throughout Asia. It's a lot of people that are very poor and they have nothing left, and their way that they've been living for hundreds of years has been commoditized and turned into multinational corporations, and now they have lost their way of living and surviving. And so there are people that are just trying to get by. So we need to address the real issues, which are the markets that drive this poaching. For example, fur is a great example. In California, a lot of the snare traps that are used for the fur industry. And California banned the use of snare traps for recreational or for commercial use. So that is a huge step forward. Now, the problem is that they're not necessarily illegal. And every country, and within that country, every state has a different set of laws in regards to snare traps. And I'm actually going to put the link down below so that you guys can click on it and see what type of laws you have where you live. So I don't want to talk too much about this because Kailen is one of the most amazing experts on snare traps and what's going on and the situation down in South Africa. But what I want to do is just give you some basic starters. So when I was doing some research, I found there was a fascinating origin story. The snare traps were originally ones that would grab legs, and they were called man traps. And they were actually invented to keep poachers out of European estates in the 1600s. So there we go. That is a little bizarre, but there you have it. So, okay, there we go. I see we have a couple of viewers on here. If everybody can say hi and try to say something on the screen, I would love to see how we're doing with everybody today. And again, this is our maiden journey, so I'm not quite sure how it's all going to go, but we're hoping we like this new home because quite honestly, when it came to being on Facebook, we were getting really heavily censored, so we just had some issues there. Anyway, okay, I see that we're on, so please everybody say hi, add some comments, and let's see if we can get this to work. And you know what? I am going to comments. Okay. See what happens here. All right, everybody. So hopefully this will go well. And okay, anyway, let's get back to our story, shall we? So we're talking about poaching. We are talking about the crazy origin of poaching. Now, poaching, the unfortunate thing about it is that when you come to snare traps, what they do is they lay traps for animals along popular routes. So it's an indiscriminate form. It'll catch anything. It catches all sorts of animals, and there's been an issue recently where people have been paying more attention to it because their dogs have been getting injured and killed by these traps when they go and they walk through the parks and through areas like that. And this is the standard old snare trap. This is one that has been kind of the one you see in the movies, where the guy walks into it and then he's pulled up the tree upside down, and it's treated as comedy. But look at this situation now. Not all of them are this complicated, but the problem is that none of them are very visible, because the point is the animals walk through them and not know. And it catches every type of animal, and that goes from the size of the rabbit all the way up to elephants. So there is there's nothing innocent about that going on. So I don't see much chat happening at the moment. I'm going to switch us back to this one, because why not? Until we can get the chat happening. And again, this is all brand new here, so please come on in, join the conversation, tell us what's happening. Anyway, let's see. Now, what we talked about the origin story of it, and yeah, the problem is these things, like I said, they tend to catch everything and anything in their path. So there's a lot of very indiscriminate death. And the problem is they catch all these other animals and they literally call them trash animals, ones that they can't afford, that don't bring them any income. So there we have it. Anyway, I find that to be very crazy, very disturbing. So, all right. So anyway, we are now we're going to bring on Kailen here in about 10 minutes and start talking to him about the situation down there. And again, what I wanted to talk about, Kailen to me is one of the real inspirations in conservation, because we get to look around the world and we get to see how people are treating their local issues. And what Kailen has done, and I don't want to speak much for his program, but he has found a way to go and find these snares that are out there. They turn them into jewelry and then sell them, and that helps fund more snare walks, and that puts more people out in the field. And he starts to bring out kids, and he starts to educate people, and he starts to bring people into the field to not only show them these snares, but to deactivate the snares, remove the snares, and then turn the snares into sellable products that he can then use for funding back into removing more snares. So he has actually found a way for his snares to pay for removing themselves. And that is something we can all learn from, because we all have local issues. What I love about this show is that we get to talk to people around the world. And, what we find is there's a commonality that generally people say, I've had enough of this, and they stand up and do it, because the people that are meant to take charge of things don't tend to. The companies don't tend to. Companies work with companies for what they consider the bigger good, the overall, we're doing this for your own good. They're kind of like disapproving parents a lot of times, right? But what we're finding is that really when it comes to conservation, it's people that stand up and say, this is no good. I can't do this. And again, what we have to remember is the Buddha quote, because we need to go back to having things being done out of compassion and kindness. We don't want animals dead because we care. We don't want them suffering because we care. In these snare traps, a lot of them don't die right away. They will spend days waiting for the hunters to come back. They'll set the traps. They'll leave for days. Sometimes it's 12 hours, sometimes it's 3-4 days. And they come back and check and just see what kind of damage they've caused. So it's an insane amount of cruelty. But again, it's a cruelty that's very difficult to measure, because it's a cruelty that's measured only by the market in which that cruelty is transferred into dollars. So we need to remember that going out and just stopping poachers isn't going to change things. We need to convert younger ones that might be thinking about poaching. We need to get rid of ways for these markets to exist. And we need to, more than anything, try to educate the people that are buying this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people that still talk about ivory and fur and things as if it's a very important, thing in their life. Oh, it'd be beautiful to have an ivory laden but that comes from a tusk, and that comes from an elephant, and that creates orphan elephants, and that creates all sorts of issues. That creates death in many levels, in many ways, whether it's the families where their resources are being exploited and they're not having the money, or it's the animals that are being exploited for the money, or it's the people that find themselves in situations they don't necessarily want to be in, that they need to do in order to survive. So very complex situation. We have the luxury of sitting here and saying, well, obviously animal suffering is wrong. But again, we need to go in deeper than that, because it's going to require more than feeling bad about it or noticing it. And that's one thing, is today's a very difficult topic, but I want everybody to feel empowered, because this is the point of today's show, is that in the utmost difficulty, you can always find a solution. I always say, yeah, we are the virus. People always say, people are the virus. People are the virus. Well, you know what we are, but we're also our own antibody. We're all we have to fight us. So for every one of us that focuses on conservation, there might be 10 that focus on profit, but acting through love, compassion, and kindness is more power than evil always, and love and truth always win out. And we've seen it forever. And, the Buddha said it, but it's in every religion, it's in every culture. And we have to always remember We're the majority. We are 98%. They say there's the 1%. Well, guess what? Don't worry about the 1%. What about the 99%? What are we doing? We have the power to become the sliding scale of morality that allows money to be made. And there are certain things that eventually through time we say, no, this is not right. We cannot do this anymore. And, we have entered a new era where people talk about speciesism. Why should we value one species but not another? Why can't we approach life and look at everything with its value in place and purpose, not through our eyes of resource or use? I was talking to a friend the other day, and my friend works at a school, and they brought up a great point. When they're talking about animals, it's always in the context of our use. Well, what's a pig for? What do we have a donkey for? What do we have a chicken for? We always see nature through the eyes of dollars and resource, which is not, it doesn't really make sense. It's not very natural. You're not born and think, oh my gosh, look at all this, grass in my yard. How can I exploit this and make money? It's not the thought of an 8-year-old, and so I feel that we are born natural, and we are retrained to walk away from things we know are right in order to do the things that we need to do. And so we're entering a new realm where our consciousness is picking back up. Our ability to understand each other is picking back up. Shows like this and shows like so many others out there are joining people internationally for one topic, and we're all getting to talk, and we're realizing that we're together and we can do this, and we are all one. So I think it's a very beautiful thing. And again, on our show, please, I know this is going to be a very impassioned topic, but please keep your mind open to it. Just like I always talk about politics, we don't want to, at the end of the day, just be talking to conservationists. We want to find ways to expand our audience. So just like, I don't necessarily think that politics matters. It's all about what are the laws and what's being done. So we need to stay open. We need to hear everyone's opinion, and we need to take everyone's opinion and learn from it, because everyone's perspective can offer us something and can help sharpen our own perspective and our own view on things. So this is why we're here. This is an amazing opportunity for us to all talk, share some links, share our knowledge, share our experience, and let's talk about how this is going to work, because again, something as atrocious as snare trapping is something that we need to address, and it's a silent conservation killer. This is a conservation crisis. I saw it listed as. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much more about it because I have the most amazing guest, and I say that because when I was doing my research, I was looking for snare trapping and trying to find out as much information as I could, and almost every article has Kailen in the article. So he is literally the man to talk to. And I do want to share, we were testing our video work the other day, and he said, listen, I want to do the Skype test with you, but I have a problem. We have a baboon that's running around, and I need to go help deal with that. So I want to bring that up because he lives in the front line. He lives with nature. He's there. He's not pontificating about it and thinking about it. And he's going to help bring us into his world, help us understand what's happening in South Africa, help us understand what's happening with snare trapping, and help us understand how we can change things for the future. So before we get Kailen on the phone, which hopefully everything will go well, what I'm going to do is go ahead and play an intro video that will kind of show everybody who Kailen is. And we'll be right back and talk to him live.
Through research and understanding, I hope to inspire others to conserve their natural world. My name's Kailen Padayachee, and I'm one of the co-founders of the KaiNav Conservation Foundation. My late twin brother and I started the KaiNav Conservation Foundation purely because we wanted to be Africans with African solutions to African problems. The work that we do with the foundation is part of his legacy. The best way to protect animals and nature would simply to become part of the solution. We invite public members to join us in our research work, so understanding more about snare poaching and the illegal bushmeat trade before we need to implement expensive, elaborate ways to protect them. It's time we find a way to reimagine our coexistence with nature.
Okay. Just count to 5 for me.
4, 5.
All right, here we are. We are back live with Kailen. And Kailen, thanks for joining us today on the Conservation Conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So hopefully, I don't know if it's echoing. I've got a little bit of an echo over here. You are on our first episode here on YouTube. You know, we had to get away from Facebook. We were finding we were getting a little bit of censorship, and this is such an important topic. I didn't want to take any chances. And we tried yesterday. Obviously, that didn't work. So thanks for being back today. What I'd like to do, just to start, if you could go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you've been working on recently and what you do over there with KaiNav Conservation.
All right. Well, basically, KaiNav Conservation Foundation, we are an environmental research and education organization. Our main project that has actually brought us out into the spotlight is our snare research and education program. We'll speak about today, in fact. And what we do is we go around South Africa, speaking to landowners. We speak to nature reserves, both provincial and private, and we try to find out where the problem is when it comes to snare poaching. Which areas are experiencing high levels of it. And then we go in and try to find out why. What are the reasons this is happening? Can we remove as much snares as possible? Because at the end of the day, we want to save as many animals from this type of horrible death. But at the end of the day, it's helping people, the reserves, these around the reserves, who's involved in that area. That is the idea behind the program, is to do as much good as we possibly can.
And now I want to actually just jump right in, because I love the idea that you have gone out and you make these snares sort of pay for their own removal. If you could talk about what you guys do with this snare program and selling how you help fund it.
Sure. Basically, as you can imagine, as you were saying, snares are all over the place. They're probably the most common form of poaching throughout Africa and Asia. And the reason for that is because snares are very easy to come by. It's easy to steal, easy to make a lot of effort. And so as a result, there are millions of these things all over Africa and Asia being used by people as young as 5, 6, or even older to in the late 40s, 50s. So it's a very easy type of poaching to use. So as a result, when we started off our program, it was a research program. It was finding out more about these pieces of equipment and the bushmeat trade associated with it. But we ended up having snares pile up in our offices, and it was just accumulating day after day, and we needed a way to get rid of them in an environment conscious way. Something that to and also a way where the snares aren't going to just be taken off those landfalls and put back into the bush. So we needed something to really get rid of the snares, and so what we did is we started looking to our communities. In Africa, we've got phenomenal artists. We've got they're street artists, and they specialize in making art pieces out of wire. And in fact, that's a unique African art form, wire art. So we looked at these artists and how great their work is, and we said, well, geez, snares are wire. Maybe we can make the same stuff. And so we piloted it with one or two of the artists in Johannesburg, and it came out phenomenal. The pieces that they made were absolutely beautiful. And so we ended up marketing it as snare art. Basically, conservation through art. using these horrible pieces of equipment that were meant to kill and injure animals to make pieces and inspirational pieces of art that depict the animals that they were meant to kill. And that program has gone on to fund a lot of our work throughout South Africa. And not only the snare work, but a lot of our other research and monitoring programs that we run in the foundation as well.
That is great. I love that. That's such a unique program. And what we're going to do is make sure that we add the link so that people can go and check out the snare art and, and purchase it. I've already had a lot of requests from people that heard about what we're going to be talking about this week to see if they could buy some and get some, because it's also a very unique thing to own, to take something that was once, such a terrible purpose and to make it something useful is really great. And I think that a lot of people can learn from that, especially around the world, because we all have immediate things that we can go out and and grab and do, and let's take them and make them ours and make them help pay for getting them out of there. Now we were kind of talking about the snare and the poaching. What is the main, I just kind of want to make sure that we understand sort of the situation there, because in every country, I know snares are popular in the US, Canada, there's a few other countries, but in South Africa, what's the main purpose of it, and how have you found the culture that, that surrounds the people that you've caught that use snares or that encounter or work with your snare program?
Snares. Okay, first of all, you're right. Every country has their own rules and regulations regarding hunting as a whole. And at the end of the day, that's what snare poaching is. It's a form of hunting, a very ancient form of hunting. And in South Africa specifically, this type of hunting has been passed down from generation to generation, from great grandparents all the way down the line. And so it's important to remember that this is very tied to the cultures in not only South Africa, but Africa as a whole, because it's down from generation to generation. But today it is illegal in South Africa to use any form of trap, whether it's snare trap, whether it's like you find in North America. We're not allowed to trap at all in Africa. There is no permit for it. If you're going to be hunting, it's with conventional rifles or firearms and bows. It's not going to be with traps. So right off the bat, snares. If you're using it's a form of poaching. It's not illegal. But that being said, a lot of people that find poaching using snares are young. They're between the ages of 10, 15. Maybe early 20s, and a lot of them, the majority of them, in fact, do not realize what they're doing is poaching. You see, in South Africa, as it is in many parts of the world, the media is dominated by rhino and elephant poaching. So rhino horn and ivory, and that's for a lot of that is what wildlife poaching is. And it's the same here. A lot of the youngsters using snares do not realize what they're doing is actually poaching. And when you speak to them, they'll tell you we're not targeting rhinos, we're not targeting elephants, so we can't be poachers. But until you actually go explain to them that what is poaching? No, poaching is the illegal harvesting of resources, not just animals but plants as well. That they realize, wait, what I'm doing is against the law. So that's also something very important to remember. A lot of poachers do not realize what they're doing, and that's where it's very important to bring education of what we do. It's very important to remove the snares. That's hands down. But it's equally important to make sure that the people taking part in this activity understand what they are doing.
Do you find that did the light click on in the younger kids, or how do they receive that?
Yeah, I've actually got a quite an amazing story. One of my education groups that we took out for the first time in the cradle of humankind here in South Africa on a snare removal program, snare education program to teach these children about not only poaching and wildlife poaching, but about wildlife and nature in general. We took them out looking for these snares, and these are high school children, so in their teens. And as we went through the program, teaching them about snares and about poaching, we took them out. We found actual snares in the bush, which we removed and taught them about. Yeah, I noticed there was one child that was standing at the back of the group, and as the program went on, it got quieter and quieter. And at the end of the program, we were kind of just having a debrief, discussing what was done during the program, and the child didn't look right. He was quiet, looking down at his feet the entire time. So I pulled him aside. And I said, "Everything all right? Is everything all right? Did you enjoy the? Did you enjoy the? Burn anything? And he turned around. He said to me, "Sir, I do this with my friends. When we school in Johannesburg, we go out back to the rural areas, and we do this. We go and catch animals. For us, it's hunting. We never what we were doing was wrong." And I said, "Well, you know better than us. I do. But does that make me a bad person? Does that make me a poacher?" And that's when it dawned on me that this is one child. How many of these children are doing the exact same thing? Not only in South Africa, all over the world. And I said, "You're not a bad person. You just do not know." That's why we and that's our duty as wildlife conservationists, as environmental scientists. It's our duty to get that message across to people, everyone, not just fellow scientists, fellow conservationists, everybody in our community, so that everybody can make an informed decision on their actions. And this is what this child did. I mean, after that program, learning about snare poaching, he told me he's going to teach his friends that what they're doing is so just by changing the mindset of that one child, we possibly change the mindset of an entire community.
That is beautiful. That is an amazing seed to be able to have the ability to plant that, and to spread it. I was talking earlier about like a lot of the people in the Amazon and these remote areas don't have the same benefit to be able to choose that. And, there is that whole aspect too of culture and history. And people want, to judge that. But obviously, in the face of poaching, it's a difficult thing. I mean, poaching itself is a difficult topic because it's kind of like it's an authorized use of land, and at the same time, there's that aspect of it. But then there's also the aspect of doing illegal animals and black market sales and things like that. Now, by the time it gets to these kids, it's they're not even thinking twice about it. But then maybe in the future, the business opportunity will open up to get some, tusk or something. So it sounds, I think it's amazing to be able to open the minds of the kids, and that really changes the future of how they're going to perceive their own natural resources in their backyard, which is, it's like you had talked about, that's what you want to do is preserve your house, your home, where where you're proud, where you live, and where you grew up, and that's what we need is more people fighting to protect our own backyards. And education is such an important key. Now, and I'm curious, what are the major markets that do affect in South Africa that would put somebody, say, in this position where they would end up going out to poach to try to earn money? What are they generally looking for, or what kind of damage is it maybe causing, even if it's an unintended consequence from these people?
Okay, well, first of all, your snare poaching, the majority of your snare poachers are subsistence poachers. What they catch is for the pot. It's to feed themselves, feed their family. But at the end of the day, it's very much like fishing. I always tell our researchers and our participants on our programs, just like fishing, the more lines you have in the water, the better chance you have of catching something. Snares are exactly the same. They're so cheap to come by. They're so easy to make. So a lot of poachers that use snares will choose to put up 10, 20 snares at a time in one area in the hope that if one misses, the other is going to catch. And now that's obviously having huge effect on wildlife populations locally in local areas, and in some cases has actually resulted and is resulting in local extinction of certain species. With
Wow.
with subsistence poaching, although a lot of it is for pot, as I said, 40 snares out at a time, sometimes they get lucky and they catch more than one animal. And it ends up being that they eat one and then they sell the other. And just as easy as that, they go from subsistence poaching to commercial poaching. Because now you're getting some type of gain for it. And that's the gate. That becomes now simplest gateway. Just because I had extra, I wanted to share with my friends. It's now a gateway because a lot of them start to realize, wait, hold on, I can eat and I can create, I can generate income for myself by selling extra meat. And so that's what we're trying to we're trying to catch a lot of kids is before they reach that point, before they get to the selling, the commercial side of it. Because that's I mean, once you go down that path, it's trying to full stomach and full pockets. It's a little harder to put out an alternative. But yeah, the biggest thing is with the commercial side of it, we're finding that again very cultural. The taste for bushmeat. People they grow up with it. They grow up with eating from a young child. So even if they move out of these rural areas, they come to sprawling cities like Johannesburg, they still have a taste for bushmeat, and that's what fuels that's poaching. Both within our urban areas, because we've started to see more poaching in our urban areas, but also further afield.
Wow. So it spreads out, huh? We, when you're out there, I mean, from what I understand, if you could kind of help us visualize what it's like. I mean, you go on these walks and the snares are hidden. They're trying to surprise the animals, catch them by surprise. Do you guys use sticks, or how do you safely kind of walk through these areas? I also heard that a lot of people forget that they set the traps. So they'll set like 50 and remember maybe 20 are and walk back. Just kind of curious what your experience is with that.
Yeah. Again, it's so cheap to come by, so easy to make. 50 snares for one poacher it's a day's work, and a lot of the time they don't use the equipment we do. We use GPS equipment to find out where, to make sure that we know where we're going. When a poacher goes out, he doesn't take the location of his snare. He just sits it where he feels that it's most likely to catch an animal and leaves. If he remembers, he'll remember the general area, but he won't remember where each and every snare is set. So he will come back every now and again to check on those snares, but it's unlikely that he'll get to all of them. So how we go about doing it? I mean, we've been running the program for just over 4 years now. So we become accustomed to being like, and that's part of our research as well. We want to find out what are the characteristics of the landscape that is more likely to have snares. So is the vegetation type, the vegetation structure, a variable that influences snare placement? Is the distance between water sources a variable that influences sneakers? And this is where the research side and the monitoring side comes in. We gather this type of data when we're out in the field. When we find a snare, we gather all this information. What type of snare is it? How big is the snare? So the size of the set snare will tell you what animal the poacher is targeting. What are the distances between different variables, homestead, roads, water sources? What is the vegetation structure? How is it a closed woodland? Is it open savanna? What are the different types of vegetation in the area? And we try to put all these variables together in hopes that we can put together enough information to generate a model, to give us an idea, a prediction model, so that the idea is to gather enough information to promote proactive conservation as opposed to reactive conservation. What we're doing with rhinos at the moment, that's very reactive. A rhino has to die for us to put people in motion, put operations in motion. The idea for this program, the data coming out of this program, is to have a proactive approach to this, to conservation and to anti-poaching. If we can tell where snares are going to be just by looking at, for example, a Google Earth image of a reserve, we can already put steps in place to prevent that type of poaching happening. And that's what we're trying to gather. So when we go out, as I said, we pick an area, we rely a lot on local intelligence from reserve management, from local communities, and then we go in and we systematically survey an area, looking at variables that we know from experience will promote poaching. So dense vegetation, animals. Animals. People think that animals just walk randomly through the environment. They don't. They follow the path of least resistance. They don't want to work harder than they need to, and poachers know that. Again, poaching is a form of hunting, and these guys are phenomenal hunters. So they understand animal behavior better than an academic behaviorist. They just know where the animal is going to go, how it's going to move through the environment, and they anticipate that, and they put these snares in the path of where these animals are going to go. Water is also a very big thing. Animals need water. Poachers realize, and they use these water holes in permanent water, and that's also seasonal. Seasons, different reserves. So different reserves during different seasons they have snares in different areas. So all this the entire time we're out there, we're gathering data, making sure that we have a full data set of all the reserves we work on to make sure that we get better at detecting this thing, get better at preventing it in the future.
That's fantastic that you're taking the information, analyzing it, and that's amazing to go out and to have that much field resource. And you must be, extremely familiar with the areas all around there. I was going to say, one thing that really amazes me is you have a very warm personality, and you're on the front lines of some really difficult conservation situations, I would say. So it seems to me that, you must be very easy to get along with. There must be a certain amount of kind of, I don't know what word to use, maybe respect or, the way that you approach everybody. It sounds like it's not, for us on the outside, we always see it as good and bad. We see the idea that there's armed poachers and there's armed, people in between. But we're talking right now about the actual humans that are doing this to eat. And as fascinating as you explained to us, that becomes the gateway to also being able to realize that it could provide them with a life. And it being traditional and it not really having to do much with extinction, it's perhaps a lot of them don't even have that realization yet, which is why it's so important that you're out there, doing the education. But it sounds like you've got a good way that, you're able to sort of work. In a sense, you're consistently working with the problem in a non-adversarial way, another way of approaching things with an approach of kindness and love. How do you find that works in the field?
Yeah, it's a great question. People tend to forget what conservation is and why am I here? Why is any conservationist here or environmental scientist here? It's for people. Conservation is not for animals. Animals and the wildlife don't need us. Without us, they really wouldn't need someone to take care of them. But seeing that humans are here and here to stay, conservation is here for people. I work a lot with young conservation students in university and coming out of university, getting ready to move into the careers and get jobs with conservation organizations. And the one thing I always tell them, and I always tell them to remember is you're doing this for people. You're doing this so that your children and your children's children are going to have this at the end of the day. And the fact that we're saying your children, your children's children, it's for people. It's not for wildlife. It's not for the environment. It's for people. And that's number one. That is always important to remember. Also, it makes it a little easier. We are not an anti-poaching unit. We're not a security force. We're not the police. We're scientists. We are there to gather data. We are there to analyze that data and to provide the community with answers. And when we go into any community, any reserve, that is the mindset we go into. We are not here to arrest people. So on our surveys, we have come across poachers. We have come across poachers setting snares. We have come across poachers that are in the middle of processing a carcass. Very simply, if they would like to talk to us, we talk. We chat to them, we speak to them about it. If they don't want to talk to us, that's great. We leave them be because our job is not to arrest people. Our job is there to get answers. We obviously work with security teams. They take over from that point. But I found, especially when it comes to data and intelligence gathering, you win a lot more flies with sugar than with crack, unfortunately. So the idea is build a rapport. It's so important to build that rapport with the community. They need to be able to trust you. You're not coming there to fight with them. You're coming there to help them in the long run. Poaching at the end of the day, bushmeat, especially the bushmeat trade, we think about it from a very Western kind of mindset, protecting animals, keeping animals safe, and wanting to, we value the intrinsic and but these communities aren't Western communities. These communities, as you said before, they've grown up, they've lived off land for hundreds of years. They've learned to look at nature, look at wildlife in a very, very different way to what we look at wildlife. And we need to understand. We need to understand there's going to be differences in our outlooks, in our mindsets, and we need to understand that and accept that. And once we do that, it's a lot easier to find similarities between us. One of the things I was speaking to someone recently, the rhino poaching crisis. For years and years and years, we've been putting more and more boots on the ground, guns in hands, and teams. It's become a war. It's become a war zone. And there's parts of South Africa where you wouldn't realize that you're in a nature reserve. You'd think you're in Afghanistan or somewhere where there's a war going on, because it's really that bad. Yet, over increasing the amount of guns and people fighting this war, we've lost more elephants and rhinos than ever before. So aggression is really not working for us. It can't be the only thing we use to get our way and to get our message across. There has to be something else. There has to be more respect. There has to be more of the human side of it. Seeing one another for our differences and finding common ground, finding a way to work together. And that's not just us as conservationists, with poachers, with communities, with everyone. Otherwise, we're just going to keep shooting one another. We're going to just keep killing animals. We're just going to keep going around in that circle. there was a program a little while ago. I can't remember where I watched it, of a group of I'm sorry to say, American ex-military that came into a town or a village in Africa to help with the poaching crisis. And they walked into that village and they just created havoc, pulled people out of their homes, stripped them down, fixed buildings, and that created a lot of hate. There were people in there that weren't necessarily poachers, and probably weren't going to be poachers, but after that type of interaction, said, "Well, I'm going to poach anything I want. I'm going to kill whatever animals in front of me, just to prove to you that I can do what I want to do in my own home." And that common denominator is aggression. Aggression doesn't solve everything, and we need to be careful with aggression. We need to know when to just step back and to as a person, as a human.
Yeah, that it's. I really like that you talk about that aspect of it, because it just feeds the anger and the negativity will just feed on itself, and that is what has prompted all this economy over the last 100 years, and that's what's led to the decline of everything. And the only way forward is a new way forward, which we're seeing a lot of people waking up and a lot of minds waking up now. And that's part due to the internet, but it's also a lot due to programs like yours, where you're boots on the ground, you're interacting, you're showing people there's a new way to think, a new way to be, that there's another way to approach nature. And I think that's important, because you're not trying to change what they've got going on, but you're trying to find and explain to them a balance and a respect. And I think that the only way that they'll ever be able to see it that way is if they are treated, with respect. So it's, it really is another example of what our quote was in the beginning, where you have to fight this negativity, where it all comes from, with love and kindness and compassion, and to understand the human face of of the situation that's happening. Because you talk about that example of these military guys rolling in. Why aren't the Western people policing the markets? We're part of the major part of the problem. We want monkeys, we want pets, we want to go see a beluga or a dolphin in the aquarium because we don't want to pay an extra $1,000 and go see them in the wild. We want what we want, and it's us at the end of the day that's putting all the money into the markets. It's us. It's obviously, there's a lot of Chinese medicine that is a huge black market issue. We ran into that in fishing as well. For example, when I was out with some crabbers, they would catch a seahorse, and the seahorse was worth like $2 or $3 if they sold it locally. And instead, if they sold it for Chinese medicine, it was worth $15, which for them was like 2 days of pay. So when we talk about these things, it's important to talk about addressing the source of the problem, because it's the only way we're going to fix it. And I know that they've tried with legislation, and there's a lot of ongoing battles. And while they're fighting that side of it, you guys are in the ground fighting. You're on the ground. You're in with people. I just can't even imagine. If you could kind of help us understand, like, okay, you walk up and the guy is setting his snare. Is he automatically defensive of you, or is he willing to talk to you, or how does that interaction go? That seems amazing.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, the guy takes off in the other direction. He wants nothing to do with us, because he's experience with anybody there other than his fellow poachers is he catches a hiding from security or from the police because of what he's doing. So anybody that pitches up that he doesn't know, he's heading in the opposite direction at a pace. A funny story, I took a group out probably about 2 years ago, and the group was made primarily out of women, and it's strange. We get a lot of female supporters and people that want to come and join the program, a lot of females. And we took a walk out and we were looking for snares, and we came across a poacher that was setting a snare. He took off running, and one of the ladies that were on the program ran after him at a pace. This was after I explicitly said, we're here as researchers, not security forces. Cannot be chasing anybody down. She took off running. I think I only caught up with her about half a kilometer away. But yeah, most of the time. Again, they're also kids. A lot of the poachers that we come across are youngsters. So they're very scared. They all they know is mom and dad have told me that when I'm out and you come into contact with somebody in uniform, they're going to hurt you, or they're going to be nasty to you, because that's what they're used to, and that's what their experience is. And so a lot of the time they're super. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to do anything just in case we hurt them. But most of the time they just don't want anything to do with us.
What have you? Well, this is a two-part question. I'm wondering how many snares you run into when you go out and you do your surveys in a typical day, and also have you ever run across a person that has gotten into like a snare or a steel trap or been injured through any of these that you've seen?
On an average day, it varies depending again on season. It tends to be able to find a lot more snares during the winter or drier seasons, because there's a lot less vegetation than in summer. But I think we surveyed an entire reserve for a full day, and we came across not a single snare. And then there's been days where within 1 to 2 kilometers we've removed over 80 snares. So it varies depending on what season we're in. And what was the second part of that? Oh, person, people getting caught in it.
Oh, and the second is yeah.
So basically, yes, we have had people that are caught in snares. In fact, we were out in the field about a week ago now, and one of our participants that were on the program actually got caught in a snare as we were exiting the field. But these snares are not, again, they're slip knots. In fact, I have a snare right here, so I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little bit blurred, but basically, it's a very simple piece of equipment. So it's set up along a. There we go. Yeah. It's set up along an animal path. Let me just see if I can undo this. There you go. That's better. It's set up along an animal path, just like this. And what happens is, as the animal passes through, it gets caught around the leg or around the neck, and then it just gets tighter the more you pull. And you can see. And with humans, easy. We've got thumbs. It's easy to just take it off. So no one, we don't really get hurt. But you can imagine with a jackal or a warthog, something that doesn't have thumbs, and then in their mind they're terrified something's got a hold of them. They just keep pulling until unfortunately that snake cuts through them.
Jeez, I think that's the worst part of that, is knowing that as they're trying to escape, this cruel device is making it more eminent that they won't, and causes more and more damage to them. It's just such a, it's. I think it really pulls at everyone's heartstrings intensely, because it's such a cruel and horrible approach. And again, not to, to judge the people that are out there that are doing any types of snare trapping, and I understand. Hunting and trapping has been a very long tradition. In our country, it went out of control. I mean, people saw the movie The Revenant. We lost we depleted all of our resources of all of our wild animals due to our need for fur and hunting and some other things, and not really sustenance. The messed up thing in America is that we actually hunted to destroy sustenance. we went in and decided to kill a lot of the buffalo so that a lot of the First Nation people wouldn't have access to the food that they normally had. So, Western economy is often built in this sort of destructive realm. So I think it's nice that you guys are finding a way to, like I said, you grab the snares, you turn it into art, you sell it, it helps pay for going back out and taking more snares out. And, I don't want to get too into the sad part of the snare itself, because people can Google that and look into that. But I do think that the way that you've handled it is a great inspiration for people around the world that have to deal with these immediate problems, and instead of asking your senator and trying to lobby them and all that stuff, just go out in the field and one person can make a huge difference. And that's what's amazing to see. And I love that you are so devoted to continuing education. I wanted to mention on here that you gave a TED Talk. And yeah, now do I understand, was that too controversial for them to release, or are you still waiting for them to maybe put that out?
I've been waiting, after a few minutes, I still haven't had a reply, so I'm not too sure if it was too controversial or what the story was. But yeah, it was a TED Talk on in fact, exactly this. It was snare poaching, how we use art to conserve species. It's just basically on the program.
So, and okay, now I like the way you said that too. Art to save the species, to save a species. And again, that is another way that everything you're doing comes from an organic foundation of kindness and compassion and creativity, which is another nice element that a lot of times gets lost, especially in conservation. So it's a really nice thing to bring it in. People often feel conservation, they can't help. It's out of their hands. Everything's going extinct, and the world's a dumpster fire, and what are we going to do? But in fact, we always talk about this. We have a lot we can do. And, right here, right now is a perfect example. You can walk in the field, you can take a snare out. You might be somebody that knows how to creatively turn that into art. You might be somebody that lives in Germany or England or Ohio or Los Angeles that says, I'm going to buy that piece of jewelry and help these guys in South Africa. So we have this amazing worldwide, sort of like we're a self-enclosed market. I think in a lot of ways we've all stopped waiting for the world to change and started making it change. And so I really wanted to thank you for that, because to me you're a big inspiration, because you've made the world different by how you go out and you do it, and that, but leading by example is the way to go. And I'm excited that you're out there changing the kids, changing the future, and changing this conversation and bringing attention to it, because I know it's a fine line when it comes to snares, but it's really important that we curb this illegal use of them and to get people on the right path back on this. Now what I wanted to ask is, I'm sorry. I have to say it because, it's one thing that I love about this show is that I get to talk to people that really are inspirations. And, it's amazing because, it's around the world, and everybody that's watching this now thinks, hey, I can go out and I've got the same thing right here, and now I know you've gone over this before, but I would like to say, what was the moment that you went, we can't have this. I'm going to step up and do this.
It was completely by mistake to this particular project. Just by chance. That it started in 2010, where myself and my twin brother, in fact, we both of us started foundations. We were working for the Walt Disney World Company in Florida as a Savannah guide, teaching people about teaching the guests Disney World about Africa, about animals, about cultures. And when we were on the program, we came across, we got to meet so many people from so many different countries. But the common denominator through meeting all of these people was if they were speaking about African species or conservation in Africa or anything like that, they were speaking about a foreign expert, somebody that a lion expert or a leopard expert, or elephant expert that is based in North America or based in Europe. Never did they ever mention an African scientist or African conservationist that was making a difference in their own country. It was always foreigners making a difference in an African country, and that didn't sit well with us. And we wanted we had discussions about it with friends, and we said, is it that there are no experts in our countries? Is it that there's no one there willing to speak out? And so we started the fund to change that to bring knowledge that there are local experts, there are people that are dedicated, that have dedicated their lives to protecting species, to improving the environmental integrity of our African countries. They were born and bred, and there are people like that, and that's where we started. When we left Walt Disney World, we got the foundation up and running, and we were looking for our first project. And when we got back to Johannesburg, a friend of ours from one of the universities said, "Hey, listen, we do a lot of work out in a reserve that is just riddled with snare traps." And at that stage, we didn't know much about poaching, and because we were very ecologically trained, we've never done any anti-poaching work. We were very hesitant to get involved with poaching. So we said, well, what we do know how to do is research. We know how to find out answers for things. Let's go take a look. Let's go see why it's happening, and just snowball from there, and what it is today.
That is great. And you say you maybe fell into it accidentally. I would say maybe you didn't know it, but that's always probably been your path. That's where the world needed you, and then luckily, you found that and clicked in with it. It's interesting. It would start at Disney World of all places. So I mean that's fantastic. And I love that you found the need for it, and I agree. Jonathan from Wildlife Campus was on a few episodes ago, and he talked about the need for us to re-educate and to bring all of this re-education back in and to rethink everything. So I don't think it could be, there can really be a more important aspect to what you're doing. And I also like that you're bringing in the public because, a lot, like I said, a lot of us feel that we can't really do anything. And I think it's important that you're bringing in people and letting them experience it and join it, and it personalizes that experience. And like you talked about the young kid that went, wait, am I a bad person? And understood that he wasn't, but also understood that he now knew something that was so different, and he that turned his mind on, and he wanted to go share that. And that's what's exciting about information and knowledge is once you transfer it over, you see that light pop on, and people love to share it. And I think that's something that we've kind of lost in a lot of ways in our modern time is sharing of that information. And again, that's what I try to do on this show. We try to bring the community in and have everybody share links and share their opinions, because too often we're all fragmented and we entrench, and then as soon as we do that, we lose the ability to possibly change things with the other side, and you said it best to me before. At the end of the day, we can't just be preaching to conservationists. We need to have other people that are out there that are doing this, maybe see it from a different perspective. And, it's again important for everybody to remember that the people that are doing this are not bad people, and it's not good versus evil, and it's not that simple. There's a lot of context that revolves around it. And we have to remember that it's about culture, perspective, understanding, and education. And as Kailen starts to alter these aspects, all of them will grow and change with the world and change with society as time goes on. But that seed has to be planted first. And I just wanted to also, Kailen, Camilla is on with us today, and she's got some some notes down here. I just wanted to share with you what she had written. This is pretty exciting too because we haven't had comments working yet. But Camilla did say, "Girls, yay!" Because I think that's a great story. And by the way, because I tend to just ramble all around. Women in conservation is a very underreported topic, but in my experience, I have found women in conservation to be one of the strongest forces. In general, the audience that I deal with the most are women. They spend a lot of time educating themselves about the topics. They have a lot of passion, a lot of empathy, and they see it in all the ways. Men have a harder time, I think, in a sense, seeing the various aspects, but women can understand the animal suffering, the cultural need, the pride or the respect of the person involved, the nuances. And I think, in my experience at least, I have found women in conservation to really be one of the strongest components, as we move forward. And it's amazing and I love having that in our group because, yeah, they're definitely, I think, really taking over right now. And you've got Greta, and you've got a lot of other conservationists, so they're making us guys kind of up our game a bit, which is good. We always need to try to get a little better. Let's see. And so Camilla says, "Thank you for doing all you do, Kailen." And Camilla is in the UK, and she deals a lot with a lot of activism out there. And she's actually working on a project right now that I can't say publicly, but I'm glad to say, because it's nice to have all the activists here together. And Camilla says, "Compassion, creativity, conservation," and it's exactly what you've got going on over there. So what I'd like to ask is, what advice would you have for somebody that wants to take that first step somehow? How would you recommend, if somebody is having an issue that they're in their local area, what would your recommendation or what would your advice be to somebody who's just sort of starting out in this conservation path?
Learn. We're in the age of internet, and we, as you said earlier, there's the importance of sharing information. And it's easier now than ever before to get information, not only locally but internationally. There's so many different resources available to us, and that's just to learn more about a topic. If you've got a topic, great. Pick that topic up and learn more about it. Reach out to people in the industry. It's amazing how a lot of these scientists are very excited to assist people getting into the industry. A lot of us realize that we're not going to be around for the rest of our forever. We need more people coming up the ranks to take over from us. And a lot of scientists are just keen to give information to help young conservation scientists find their feet in the industry. And that's the biggest thing. Reach out. You never know. You just drop an email, phone call, even if it's the person that you never think in your wildest dreams that ever reply to you. Drop an email and say, I see you have a lot of experience in this field. Would you mind helping me out with this information? If you have a specific problem in your area, reach out to your local conservation. There's so many groups, great non-profit organizations, even governmental organizations, workshops that work for people. Reach out to them. Give them ideas. Tell them you have an issue. A lot of time we're looking for people that take on an aspect of project in an area where we're finding it hard to get to. You can't be everywhere all the time. Sometimes just and we need the right person to let us know that they care. Biggest thing is learn as much as you can and reach out to experts. Find out who's there. Find out how you can help. Find out can you get involved. It's simple as that.
And that's great advice, you know, and it is amazing because all of us that work in conservation are so excited about it. I mean, you know, we wake up in the morning and we just tend to be obsessed throughout our day about this topic. And I was really amazed when I started reaching out, how many people were said, "Hey, come on in, have a talk with me, you know, let's share it," because it's an opportunity to also make sure that, you know, they're on the right course. You know, so I think there's a nice old school element of that, and that we are still one of the smaller groups that, in a sense, there's not necessarily even jobs. I mean, you know, we create them, we make them, but it's all based out of what we can do to help in conservation, and everything kind of births out of that as opposed to a standard sort of industry. So it really is, you know, one that we always welcome everybody into open armed, and, you know, we love sharing this information. And, you know, again, it's important because the more we empower people, the more we empower our future. You know, conservation is not something big and scary and that you have no control over. Everyone at home, everyone that's watching this, everyone that will watch this in the future, even all of you that will never even watch this or hear this show, each and every one of you will change the future by how you treat the world around you day by day. You know, on our show, we've talked about the concept that we are eco Roombas, you know, and we're going to leave the world either better or worse, depending on how we interact with it through those moments. So, you know, Kailen's advice is great, everybody. You know, make sure if you're just starting out, reach out to somebody that's part of what fascinates you. You know, we all have our specialties that we get involved in. And, you know, remember to focus on something that you really love, because that's what you'll excel in. You know, we can't do everything. Another reason why I love this show, I get to talk to people that do every different aspect of this. So, you know, it's amazing to see because it's a huge puzzle, and conservation has so many pieces, and none of it stands alone. None of it's a standalone topic. All of it affects each other. So, okay, now I want to ask, we're getting sort of towards the end here, but I was curious about, you know, what's happening now with KaiNav conservation. How can people get involved, and what do you guys have coming up next?
Cool, yeah. You know, there's a few ways we can get involved. Obviously, our Snare program, that's one of our biggest drivers. It helps us do the work we need to do. So, you know, order a piece. We've got all types of different pieces around. I can actually show you right now.
Yeah,
like our little elephant.
Hey, look at that. Wow. And now that is that's the wire that they use when they build these, huh?
These pieces, every piece that we sell is 100% snare. So there's not a piece in here that is not snare wire. Everything has either caught an animal or was set to catch an animal. We also use recycled material. All this is recycled that it's sitting. Wood that it's sitting on is actually alien invasive vegetation that is removed out of our natural areas. So it's alien invasive wood that is causing havoc. Also, one of the biggest threats to biodiversity in South Africa at the moment is alien invasive vegetation. And so we use it for snare art pieces. Everything is recycled on this, so it's environmentally friendly as well. So that's one of the ways.
It's a beautiful piece.
It's so intricate. It is, you know, the artists are phenomenal. They're these are guys that are they're wire artists. That's what they do with their life, and they've chosen to do that. A lot of them are very underprivileged. They're living below the red line, but their passion is artwork. It's what they do. They don't want to do anything, and so this gives them purpose. And through the Snare program, they kind of feel. They feel like they're part of saving wildlife because they're sitting on, you know, in areas as artists. They never get just by making this piece. They feel that they're saving wildlife. So it gives them that purpose as well.
Fantastic. And it is. That's a whole teamwork right there. That's a really beautiful piece.
Thank you. And if people want to get involved, we're actually starting to take conservation experience. So we take people out into the field with us. We call them conservation expeditions. We're actually expanding removal program Africa into Uganda, where we're going to be removing snares from some of the forests where the chimpanzees and gorillas are. So we're spreading out, collaborating with a few organizations up in that part of the world, and shortly keep an eye out on our website and our Facebook page. We're going to start offering expeditions for people to come and join us out in Africa for days out in the bush and learn about snare poaching while having an amazing and very effective safari. You'll be on foot. You'll be walking with rangers, learning about what it is like to be a wildlife conservationist in Africa, what it's like to research animals. So it's going to be very interesting.
Wow, that sounds amazing, and that is great. And I will make sure to put the links down there so everybody can check in on that. I mean, to be able to go see that firsthand would be incredible, and it's. Yeah, that's. I'm going to keep an eye on it myself because I'm trying to get over there, and would love to be able to catch up with you guys in person one day.
Sure. Yeah. One of the biggest things. It's also one of the concepts that we've been for a little bit of time now as KaiNav conservation is tourism with conservation. Tourism and education with conservation research to give people understanding of what is happening. There's so many people out there that are saying what are people doing for conservation? You speak about animals that's being done, giving you an opportunity to come and get involved. Have great vacation, but at the end of that vacation, go home. Amazing stories, and also knowing that you contributed positively to the destination that you visited.
Wow, that's beautiful. That sounds like my kind of vacation. I like that. It was like Jacques Cousteau had always said that people will protect what they love, and so by doing this, you're offering the chance for people to bring that something that's normally just a concept. We hear about. That Africa, South Africa, we hear about all of this, and in our mind, it's sort of this kind of faraway, romanticized thing. But to have an intimate, personal experience like that would change everything because that would allow you to really bring it into your heart and understand that part of the world is part of your heart.
No, that's true. We live by. There was a great quote by Baba Diom, and when he said at the end, we'll conserve only what we love only what we understand, and we'll understand only what we've been taught. And we at KaiNav Conservation Foundation, that we try to live by that. Don't just assume that people are going to love want to conserve what you can conserve. If they don't understand, they don't know it. We cannot get towards it. And so this is what our programs are all about. Not just the snare programs, conservation expeditions. It's about teaching people, giving them the opportunity to fall in love with what we fall in love with, and protect what we strive to protect.
That's great. That is the way to continue to change the world and the future for the better. And I really wanted to, thank you for being out there, for doing this program, for bringing snare awareness to all of us. Because as I said, when I was looking online, I found a People magazine article about you talking about snares, and every bit of education and information was from a source, either from your website or from work that you've done. So it's really invaluable. And, just as a conservationist, I wanted to thank you for this amount of work. And I know that a lot of other people out there, feel the same way. And we are running out of time though. Unfortunately, I did want to ask before we go, because there's still like so many things I'd like to ask you and talk about. But is there any part of what you do or your approach to life or snares in general that you'd like to talk to us about that we didn't go over today, or cover anything that you wanted to make sure we discuss?
That's. I think we covered quite a bit of it. The biggest thing I want to get through to people is not all of us can contribute financially. So not all of us can buy a snare art piece or donate, and that's not only to KaiNav Conservation Foundation. That's any one of the amazing organizations. Not all of us can contribute financially. Not all of us can be in the field every day doing what we do. But every single one of us have the ability to learn a little bit more about a topic. Every single one of us have the ability to teach others about what we've learned. Humans are social animals. We want to talk to others. I mean, on a daily basis, you can speak to hundreds of people. Some days. And if we talk to one of those people, one teaching about what we learned tonight, today, about snares. Just one person every day. We'll see so many people over a year of our lifetime. And just by spreading that information, you're already making a difference. You're already helping us do what we do. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be in the field doing it. We'd love to have you. But just by talking about it, just by teaching others, you're making a very difference.
Wow. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, Kailen, thank you for being on the show with us today. It was really an amazing show, and to get to talk to you about everything down there and to get to rethink and re-understand the situation over there so we can really talk about how to address it. And I want to appreciate you for being on today. It's really amazing.
Thanks so much for having me. It was absolutely awesome chatting.
Oh, great. Thanks, man. Well, hopefully, if all's good, maybe we can have you back on in a few more episodes. This is a topic that we still have a lot more to cover. So thanks again for being on today, Kailen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, eh? Cheers.
Bye-bye. So there we have it, everybody. Kailen Padayachee, one of the nicest guys, extremely well-educated, extremely compassionate, extremely kind, and changing the world just by being himself. I mean, you guys saw him. You saw what a warm smile he has. What an amazing way to talk. He is somebody that has found his passion and his way that he can make a difference in the world. And to me, that is completely what this is all about. This is the inspiration, because, 2 years ago, I was not out doing conservation. I was doing production. And I thought to myself, how do I start? And, Kailen said it best. You just reach out to people out there in your industry, people you've heard about, people that have the same passion you have. If it's seals, find the lady that helps protect the seals. If it's sharks, find the people that do shark diving. They are everywhere. I went shark diving with my good friend Blaine, and that's what started me all off on conservation, was just simply reaching out to a thing called the Shark Boat, Captain Chris Wade. I know he's out there somewhere. And I went on and I was organizing his video. I just had a bunch of surgeries. I could barely walk. And just by being on the boat, by being in the environment, I started to meet everybody, and it opened up all my paths. So I do think that Kailen definitely had the best piece of advice. Just reach out. And you know what? All of us that do conservation, we are all more than happy to help, because the people that are entering are the people that are going to make the change after we sit back and kick back. And I think Kailen's a little younger than I am, but as we move on in age, we need some younger folks to jump in. So I see Camilla's asking about the link to how to donate or go into the pieces of art. And what I was going to show you guys is, before we get off here, this is there's a Facebook page that you can go to, Snare Art. And when you go to Snare Art, you will find this is Kailen's group right there, and you can go in and you can check out their pieces. Another great way, oh my gosh, my lights. Another great way is the his website itself, which is KaiNav Conservation Foundation. And I'm going to put that link down at the bottom as well, so that everybody has the ability to go in there and see his work, learn more about the topics. And again, snare trapping, it's considered a conservation crisis. And I read that in many, many places, but it's a silent kind of killer because it's a very difficult one to put your finger on and to find. And Kailen has done that. So again, today, today's episode has been about how do you fight something that is sort of the face of ugly and evil in a lot of senses, which is snaring itself. How do you fight that with kindness and compassion? And Kailen has done that. He's gone in and he has found everybody that he's met as an opportunity to open a conversation. And like he said, we're social animals. We like to talk, we like to learn, and we like to share. And that's what this show is all about today. And that's what Kailen's all about. And it was an amazing inspiration. And Kailen also actually hit on next week's topic. He doesn't even know it, but we talk about how do you get involved properly with ecotourism. There's a lot of fake ecotourism out there, and there's a lot of groups that are doing good, like Kailen's group, or like Wildlife Campus, or Make Art Not Waste. These are all groups that I know the people personally, and they put all of their heart and love and days into their work. There's the Orca Project. There are a lot of amazing groups that you can go to that that whatever you do will lead towards some better piece of future. And like Kailen said, you don't have to always go to the sites and buy everything. Just by thinking about this topic, learning about this topic, and sharing a conversation about this topic, you've made this topic alive and you've given it more strength. And the more we have all these separate conversations, the more it becomes a unified conversation. And the world grows and the voice grows worldwide. And once we start to do that with topics, we will be able to start to find the source of where these problems are. Again, it goes back to these black markets, ivory, skins, Chinese medicine, but it also goes back to the United States markets of wanting pets. Animals are killed often. And, I saw it firsthand where they will kill monkeys, eat the adults, or sell the carcasses, and then sell the babies into the illegal pet trade. And once the illegal pets make it into people's homes, nobody questions if they're illegal or not anymore. So there are a lot of buying habits. Just like we've rethought recycling, we need to start rethinking our relationship to things. We've stopped circuses. Now we need to rethink about some zoos. We need to rethink about what a sanctuary entails. We need to really reconsider these things. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because next week we are going to talk about what's called performative activism, where there's a lot of people out there that are hurting animals without realizing it by taking selfies with them and encouraging people to go to these quote unquote sanctuaries and fake ecotourism. And, I think we were talking with Kailen, we talked about the fact that these people are not evil. They are doing what they know. But the evil that happens often happens in places that look the sweetest. So for example, in a zoo, we save animals, but do they breed animals? So anyway, there are good zoos, there are good sanctuaries, because some of them will help and then release. I am not a believer in captive animals in any way, shape, or form. I don't really necessarily believe in zoos. And the few sanctuaries that I've been to that have really been doing their part, one of them is in Cambodia. These sanctuaries are not open to the public because once you take in an injured animal, it should all be about saving the animal. And if it becomes about a human-animal interaction, then it becomes exploitative. And then next thing you know, you're headed into just exploitative, use of these animals for profit, which is something we're all trying to get away from. Everybody wants to get away from this way of thinking before. Our great grandfathers that had monkeys and bears and stuff, they didn't necessarily think or know any better. But we don't have that excuse today. We are educated, we're knowledgeable, and we know about all the pitfalls out there. But again, please do not let it overwhelm you. Remember that for every pitfall and problem, we can build a bridge. For every problem that humans create, humans can create a solution. And just like Kailen, I think it's beautiful if we can go create that solution through acts of compassion and kindness on every level, whether we're dealing with people that we might have differences with, to dealing with the animals themselves. Everything we do in life, if we come with pure heart, clean hands, and kindness and compassion, we can change the world through, as I always say, it's a revolution through our daily routine. It's just that simple. Revolution through daily routine. We always push ourselves to get a little bit better. So I'm going to put those links down there. Thank you for joining me today. This is episode 14. This is very exciting. This is our first one on YouTube. Hopefully it went well. If you did miss it, you are going to see it on Facebook coming on live. I don't mind playing it there secondarily. But join us next Saturday. We'll be right back here on YouTube, and we're going to be talking about how to avoid fake ecotourism and how to make sure that when you are being conscious of the animals, that you're not getting fooled by any of these companies. So again, I just wanted to say thank you for being here today. Snare trapping, an amazing topic. Kailen, an amazing person, amazing conservationist, amazing to have him on the show today. To me, one of my absolute favorite inspirations. So it was a very kind of on a personal level, a very exciting show today. So thank you guys for joining us this week. And I can't wait to see you this upcoming Saturday. Remember, it's the conservation conversation. It's our world. Let's talk about it.